Welcome. Today is the 7th day of Av and the 11th of August. We're starting a new parsha this week, Parshat Vayetchanan. Vayetchanan literally means, the first word of the parsha, after which it's named, literally means, I pleaded. And Moses here is telling us that after God made an oath that he wouldn't enter the land of Israel, Moses pleaded with him to let him enter. And I've addressed this in different circumstances, that when God vowed this, it wasn't exactly that he put a brick wall in front of Moses. It's not like that Moses could not have entered if he wanted to. The point was that Moses wants to do what God wants from him. And if God says, again, the whole point of making a vow, making an oath, is to limit or guide one's will. So God's like saying, I don't want you to go in, and I'm making a vow that I won't change my mind. So Moses could technically go in. That's not the issue. The issue is that Moses is very is a honest and always devoted servant of God. So when he knows that God says, I don't want you to go in, he doesn't go into the land of Israel. That needs to be understood. So on that basis, you can understand what the plea is. The plea is that Moses is saying, please change your will. And this is the essence of all prayer. The essence of all prayer is that we come to God and we ask him to change his mind, to change his will. Now this is especially in the morning classes where we're discussing this in terms of the essence of what prayer is. But this is really the core discussion in Judaism about prayer. Is it possible to change God's mind? What does that even mean? God doesn't know what he wants. What does it even mean that God can hear prayers, if that's what we're saying? Because if God is supposed to be infinite and all-knowing, and most importantly, by infinite we mean he's unchanging. So what does it mean to change his mind? So this is really the core of what prayer is, according to the Hasidic and Kabbalistic traditions. There are other attempts to explain that prayer doesn't change God, it actually changes us. I don't want to get into that discussion. I just want to note, and I want you to know this, that this is the core discussion about what is the role of prayer. Now, let's look at how Rashi explains this word Vayetchanan, and I pleaded. The translation would be, I pleaded. So Rashi gives two explanations. He says, on the one hand, Vayetchanan comes from the word chinun or chinam, and it means that a person is asking for a free, gratuitous gift. And this is going to become very important as we go on. The first explanation is that this is not necessarily anything to do with prayer. It's the approach of the person asking God. So they're coming from a place where they say, I have no merits. And says Rashi that righteous people could plead before God based on their merits, based on the good deeds they've done, except that they don't want to. And why don't they want to? This we'll get to in a moment, but in principle the idea is that a person doesn't want to force God's hand, as it were. Not to force it, not in the sense that they don't want God to change his mind, they do, but they don't want it to be based on some kind of horse trading. Like, I have this, you'll give me that. That's not the approach they want to have with God. The approach they want is that they're coming, asking God for his mercy. That's all. So it's not based on any of my merits. Rashi quotes another explanation, which is that the word Vayetchanan comes from the same word, chinun, and it is one of the 10 synonyms for prayer. So what you can understand from between the lines is like this, that prayer is always based on merit. But asking for a free gift, even though it's the same word which is a synonym for prayer, is somehow different. it's somehow a different form of prayer. Normally prayer is based on a person saying, and even if they don't say it, they're relying on it, that there's a good reason for you, God, to grant me what I want. What is that reason? It could be that I will serve you better, I need this for this and that, I've done so many good things, whatever it is, but the person feels that he has a backing in terms of his actions, in terms of his merits, for what they're asking for. But to plead in the sense of Vayetchanan, the first explanation says that the person is more righteous in this sense and doesn't want to rely on what he deserves. He's coming and asking God, in any case, to give him what he wants even though he doesn't deserve it. So it's coming from a different place. The interesting thing, again, is that the context here is that Moses is asking to be let into the land of Israel. What we learn from this is that the prayers in the land of Israel are all the prayers of the righteous. In other words, prayer in the land of Israel is different than prayer outside the land of Israel. Outside the land of Israel, prayer is like the different synonyms of prayer. It's all based on the feeling that I do have some merit from which I am asking, or based on which I am asking God to grant my request. But in the land of Israel, a person should stand in complete nullification before God. And this has a lot to do with the time of year that we're in. The first 9 days of Av. Today's the 7th day of Av. And in that time, the sages say, Mematin besimcha. You lessen with joy. So what do you lessen? You can lessen many things. But here the idea is lessening ourselves. To be in the land of Israel is to lessen myself, lessen my merits, lessen what I think that I deserve, and come to God asking only for a free gift. I really have nothing to base my request on. It's only your compassion, it's only your goodness, it's only your ability to give those who are undeserving everything that they need. And that's the real lesson that Moses is telling us, that to get into the land of Israel, to get into the state of mind of the land of Israel, it needs to be prayer, but it has to be prayer which is like Vayetchanan. It's feeling that I am coming with no merits of my own. Thank you very much for joining. Hope to see you tomorrow.